Welcome to the Find Focus podcast. Today we will talk about making things better, heroes, good causes, volunteering, marketing, and music. Hello, Jonathan. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Martin. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I just took this headline from your actual website, and maybe you can tell us a little bit about your background and what these words mean for you.
That's a very good question. When I made the website, when I became self-employed, I knew I wanted to make a website which just very, very briefly told people what I actually do. And I'd seen so many websites and LinkedIn profiles where people say they're passionate about marketing, or they're experienced professional with years of experience as a dedicated blah, 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 blah. And I always thought, yeah, but who are you? And what do you actually do? So I just took a piece of paper, and whenever I work on a website, I take a big piece of paper and I just say, right, what do I want to tell the reader? And I came up with a few things. One of the things I say on my website is I help music companies sell things and communicate online, because everything else is just marketing buzzwords. What I actually do is help people communicate and sell things. And that's honest, and it's very difficult to just concentrate on one thing that you do. The heroes thing on my website, I think I stole that from Seth Godin, and just about everything I do is stolen from Seth Godin, but there's a link in the description somewhere. And whenever I thought about heroes, I always stumbled across teachers. And of course, a teacher isn't just somebody who you encounter in school, but a teacher is somebody you learn from. So I've learned from many people over the years in work situations and outside work situations. And I wanted just to write it down. There's lots of music in there because I studied music and I'm a musician. And one of the other aspects of what I do is to combine commercial activity, commercial work, paid work, with what you say in German, soziales Engagement, which is a lovely way of putting it, social engagement. And the English volunteering is, I don't really like the word. Germans have other words like freiwillige Arbeit, which means literally voluntary work, meaning you're not forced to do it. Anyway, so I like the term social engagement. And I remember speaking to someone a few years ago working in a charity and said, well, what's the goal? What do you want to do out of this? And I said, isn't the goal always to change the world? And she laughed, and I said, well, if your goal isn't to change the world, even just a tiny bit, then why are you doing it? And people seem to have a problem with, people seem to think it was too bold or arrogant to say that they want to change the world. And well, you can, you're allowed to. And so I tried to combine my work and my social activities on the website, and it's been very, very good, because the two things live off each other. They cross-pollinate each other. I've learned a lot from running two charities, but my two charities have also profited from the things I do for my job.
Yeah, that's great. One question that I have, like, you're a musician by training. Like, how did you get into marketing, and how did that transition look like for you?
That's quite easy to answer. I'm a lazy musician, which means I wanted a salary and a warm, dry office. And I stumbled across the idea of working for a music publisher 24 years ago. And I started working for a small music publisher, and I really found something that I liked. So I've always worked with music, but I don't earn my living from playing music. But I studied music, and when you start working for a small publisher, where there was just 5 people, you have to do everything. And in Germany at the time, the word marketing was used as a synonym for advertising, and it isn't. It's always misunderstood that marketing is advertising. And in that company, we developed this idea that marketing was how you orient yourself within a market. So how do you place yourself? What is your position within a market? And everything you do with that is marketing. So the people who write the music are just as much in marketing as the people who do the bookkeeping, because they're all members of this chain of quality or production or productivity, which brings, in any company wants to bring an improvement to the lives of the people they're selling their product or service to. And so I ended up getting a business card that said marketing on it. And I thought, oh yeah, I'm in marketing. So I don't have any classical training in marketing, but I've done marketing my whole life.
Okay, so how did you get your marketing education then?
By trying to sell classical music.
Okay.
Or by selling contemporary music, in fact. When I started working, it was in 94. Most people didn't have the internet. In 97, we set up our first website, and we started changing some of the things we were doing, like digitalization. So we started scanning music. We started putting everything on hard drives using scanners, digital printers and things. So there was this kind of this different way of working with data. And one thing I noticed early on was that most of the databases that companies used, I'd say in the past tense now, in the last 10, 15 years, were replacements for paper versions. So in the old days, they'd have a card system, and then they'd have ring binders, and then they'd have lists and sheets and things. And they said, well, we have this data, which is already organized. We'll put that into a database. Now, 15, 20 years later, when companies start creating products and services, they don't have this old data. So they start with a fresh kind of field to work in. The advantage for me taking that music and digitalizing it is that it meant it was very easy to make a website once you had the database. And that's where this whole marketing idea came around. And everything, you asked where I learned the marketing side. It's very self-taught, lots and lots of books, because there weren't many blogs and websites around. Lots of books and learning by doing. It sounds like a huge cliche, but I made lots of mistakes.
Yeah, like everybody I talk to says like they are usually self-taught and they made a lot of mistakes. And I remember a friend of mine who built a really successful company in the Netherlands called Study Portals. And when I asked him this question, he said like, yeah, we made a ton of mistakes, but nothing that completely screwed up the company. So we're fortunate.
Well, somebody said to me once that I was a good photographer, and I'm very, very much not a good photographer. I'm a very bad photographer. What I'm very good at is deleting bad pictures. Oh. And that's sort of an analogy to learning from mistakes. I don't, just one thing though, I do not agree with this kind of bullshit marketing speak that says, go and make mistakes, you'll become wiser from them. No. Nobody should try to make a mistake. The thing is that if you do make a mistake, and you will make a mistake, just get up and dust yourself down and keep working from it. I think the marketing thing, though, you're making me nostalgic now. I'm going back to the early days, 20 years ago. It was one of my interests was computers and technology, and the other one was ergonomics. I wrote a recent blog post about ergonomics and empathy. And I have this, I think it's an old-fashioned concept, but maybe you can tell me if you agree. I think that in all forms of marketing and usability and UX and communication, there has to be a very strong element of empathy. If you can't imagine what your customer is doing with this product, like the example with the European Union, they don't show these tweets and Facebook posts to their cousins and people in pubs or something. Otherwise, they wouldn't write this nonsense. They write these messages for themselves. So they're writing for an internal group of people. I think if you can genuinely put yourself in the position of the reader or the customer or the user of your services, then you've done half the marketing already. if you can actually succeed at that. The number of websites I've gone to where you spend 30 seconds on the website and you still don't know what they do. And these are big companies, you know, serious companies. I looked at one yesterday, and I said, I really don't know what they do. And it seems, I don't know, some people have a problem with it because they think that the marketing tools that we've been sold over the last decades are the main thing, and they're not. The whole thing with Google AdWords, search engine optimization, Facebook, everything everyone's ever talked about on the internet, they're just the tools. If you don't have the empathy, you don't create a service which solves a problem for your user, then none of those tools are going to help you. Or you're just going to be another cheap app which, I don't know, makes smileys or emojis or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're totally right. And for me, it comes down, and I'm still not good at this, but to explaining also the value of the service or solution that you have. If you're better explaining, like if you understand your customer with the empathy, you're also better at explaining what your product actually does for him and the true value of your product.
Yeah, there are many. What the internet has also done, and the cheapness of creating code. Basically, you only need a laptop and or any PC, any computer. You can create code. This has brought around many solutions for problems that don't exist. So there's lots of wonderful software out there, which, especially in the music business. I'll give you a simple example, which I've done myself, and it's page turning software for sheet music, for music. And the problem here is that the page turning technology built by various companies around the world is excellent. It's wonderful. It's perfect. It does what it says it does. The problem here is that the pain threshold for people using paper music isn't high enough for them to change to digital music. And that's something which is really curious, because the supply is too good for the demand. And, you know, Apple said, well, we didn't ask our customers, so they wanted an iPhone or an iPod. But, you know, they also had millions of dollars of advertising money. They're not you and me, right? And so the technology has brought lots of, if you like, marketing shortcuts, which look very attractive. The whole ads, etc. You get bombarded every day saying, boost this ad, pay for this. And if it doesn't work, spend more money. That's not marketing. That's, or in a sense it is marketing, but that's Facebook marketing. That's not your marketing.
When I did the preparation for the interview, I also, first actually I found you via Twitter, and saw your last post there. So you actually left the service. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
I've been off Twitter since July, beginning of July or end of June or something. Whenever that tweet was, I'm dry. I've been off there. I actually missed a very important message on Twitter because I was off it. I switched off the notifications and I missed a very important message. It's very easy to say Twitter's a waste of time, blah, blah, blah. You've heard of all that. You've heard all of that before. The thing I genuinely, and just personally, this is just me, I had a difficulty with was cross-channel communication. It genuinely irritates me to get Skype, WhatsApp, Viber, Twitter, Facebook, email, etc. messages from people. I'd really love everyone just to use the same thing. And so there's that side of it. The other side is the technological thing, which I think is a challenge for everybody who wants to sell a message, which is the endlessness of Twitter and Facebook. I've been off Facebook for a couple of years now, except for propaganda purposes. And yeah, so if I post something, I'll share it on Facebook, but I'm afraid I don't read other people's posts. I'm very rude about that. The Twitter thing is quite important because it ties in with my views about news, and all of these things tie in with my views of work and work life, if you like. Twitter, rolling news, newspapers, online news, and all the other things, Instagram, Facebook, etc. they're all time sinks. They're all things where you can always spend time. And what they do is they need you to come back. They don't profit from you reading one message. They profit from you coming back every hour or every day or every week, whatever it is. That's the same for every newspaper, for every TV show, for every online website. They want you to come back. And what this means is they produce content which makes you want to come back. And they sort the content, like Twitter and Facebook, according to algorithms that make you come back. And to be brutally honest, I was just not very good at resisting that. I would just get sucked in. And I'd find myself going to the Guardian website for a few minutes, then I'd go to Twitter for a few minutes, then I'd check my emails, and then I'd see if there's anything new on Twitter. And I'd end up in this vortex of time wasting. And I stopped in June. I've read more books than ever before. I've stopped reading newspapers. I read one newspaper a week, one weekly newspaper, The Economist. I don't read anything else. I don't listen to radio news or TV news, and it's absolute bliss, I tell you.
Yeah, I'm still struggling with that, but I just reread The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss, and he has the same like low information diet, and it became even clear to me when he was telling his story, like about the opportunity cost, like what you could actually do and achieve in the time that you're just wasting in an endless feed that does not even provide like real value or real information.
I fully agree. There are two aspects there for me. The first one is, I'm not saying that Twitter is a bad thing, and I'm not saying that other people should be like me, because other people may have better discipline than me. Other people may enjoy it more than me. They may really enjoy reading it. So great. There's no moral prerogative here that Twitter is a bad thing. But the other point is the bubble, if you like. That's a cliche as well, the echo chamber, the bubble. But I genuinely don't think it's healthy to keep reading what people like me think. I'll give you an example. In Austria, they have the national newspaper called Der Standard, and they had what was the project called? I think it was Cities Speaking. I don't know. There's an international project about people getting in touch with other people who have a different opinion from them. So they ask you a few questions on the website, and then they ask you if you would like to sign up and meet someone in your city who has a different opinion to you. I thought, yeah, this is a bit crazy, but okay, I'm game. I signed up, and it said things like, do you agree with President Trump's policies? Do you agree with the work of the Austrian government? Then they said something which made me really angry. Do you believe that Islam is compatible with the European values? And then something about vegetarianism, and right at the bottom, oh yeah, something about women. So I answered my questions, and I submitted my answers. And a couple of weeks ago, I got a reply back from the Standard, and they said, unfortunately, we have not been able to find anybody in your area who has differing views to you. And that was a real eye-opener for me, because, in fact, I mean, this is a real declaration of bankruptcy for the Standard, because what the Standard is saying is, our readers agree with our readers. You could say, well, that's obvious, but I wonder what they were trying to achieve. And the reason I say this is that Twitter amplifies that, Facebook amplifies that, all the online media amplifies the views that you already have. And other people have spoken more eloquently than me about how your own views get amplified by online media, and how you become less and less and less open to contrasting views. But I found it a very good punchline that the newspaper should then say, we are sorry, we couldn't find anyone with different views to you. Well, obviously, because we're all reading the same newspaper, or we were back then.
Yeah, I just remember one book from Sherry Turkle, and I think like the whole social media is just making communications worse, and yeah, it's disappearing, and we do not even notice it. But like everyone who's just a cell phone, like if I have, for example, have a look at the YouTube channel or the Instagram of my wife, she gets like completely different, like she's living in a completely different world than I do. And it's like we do not notice it, but it's happening, this kind of bubble, and it's getting worse, I think.
The crossover or the connection here to our to the way we work is it's a little bit difficult to see, but I think there's a connection here between this, what we do in our spare time, and what we do at work. And it's basically, it's what you do with your app as well. It's literally finding focus, because when you're trying to focus at work, you're trying to concentrate on something important. You're trying to be creative and productive and produce something. Unfortunately, the companies we work for measure us on all the wrong things. They measure us on things like revenue and attendance. And I remember working for a company that spent a colossal amount of time talking about working time directives and arguing and discussing and negotiating. And they were very positive about it, and they were a good company. But they spent this huge amount of time talking about, well, if you take 1 hour off there, then you can have then you have minus hours, and then you have to another. And okay, well, talk about that if you want. But if they'd spent the same time talking about productivity and creativity and training and what would you like to do, then maybe the revenue would have gone up instead of just spending all this time talking about administration.
Yeah, I've been studying this whole thing a lot, and in the end, especially, for example, if I read Seneca or something really old, I just have the view that, yeah, that's just like humankind is wired. Some people get it. They are like reading philosophy and like things that do and actually try to improve our world. And some people are just mindless and going for status things, buying the most expensive car, getting the latest mobile phone, stuff like that. And other people are caring more about relationships, friendships, and like truth, beauty, and goodness.
That's curious though, because there's never been any proof that the big car makes you happy. There's no correlation between salary and happiness. There's relative happiness and relative salary. If you have the feeling that everyone else in the office earns more than you, then you're unhappy. But that's a fairness thing. That's not a monetary question. I think that I don't know if I disagree. I know exactly what you mean. I don't think it's a case of some people don't get it. I think it's some people are just busy. Because if you get in the tram in Vienna in the morning, you see messages on the screen all the time, and they're going really fast. They're very, very quick, and you're being told, worry about America. Half a year ago, everyone was worrying about being killed by North Korea. Oh, that's gone now. That's over. It's just half a year ago we were facing nuclear Armageddon from North Korea. Apparently, that's not a thing anymore. We have to worry about something else now. So it's not that people don't get it or don't have the intellectual capacity to understand what's around them. It's that they don't have the chance to have those thoughts because they're being saturated with not even negative things. They're being saturated with commercial and exciting things. So negative stories are more exciting than positive stories, blah, blah, blah. We're getting onto my favorite subject here, which is the news thing. Like I said earlier, the newspapers and blogs and Twitterers and everybody on Facebook, they want you to come back. So they create their content so that it's sticky, so that you do come back. And I was in England the other week, and there was a newspaper article in the Eye, a British newspaper, about a shortage of allergy medicines for children. And it was a front page, then there were 2 pages, 1 page inside, and then there was a 2-page spread further in. So there were 3 pages inside and half a page on the cover. It was the main headline about the shortage of allergy medicines for children. And it's a dramatic story, and obviously lots of information to be had there and solutions. It was, they were saying, how can we solve this? But next to one of those articles, about a quarter of a page on the left-hand side of the newspaper, and everyone knows the right-hand side is more important than the left-hand side, was a piece of news saying that the number of strokes in the UK had declined by something like 40% since the year 2000. And these are people who didn't die. Strokes is I think the leading, heart attack and stroke is the leading cause of death in the UK. I'm guessing here, I'd have to look up the numbers, but it's one of the most important killers in society. And there was a dramatic, absolutely heroic decrease in the number of deaths over the last 20 years, less than 20 years. But the kids with allergy were more important because, of course, the kids with allergies were more interesting, right? But in terms of actually dead people, and I always say things like dead people, dead children. Whenever I talk about vaccines, I talk about dead children, because people don't like when you say dead people, dead children. But when they talk about, I'm not going to vaccinate my child because of blah, 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 what they're talking about there is increasing the number of dead children in the world. So anyway, I'm getting off topic here, Martin. So.
Now you just got me off topic as well. One story I just reminded me is like more negative news than good news in the newspapers. And I remember the last time I've been to London in the tube, there was like some kind of 40-page newspaper, and I just scanned through it, and then like the first 20 pages like literally were only bad news, like a car accident here, like some other scandal, some celebrity betrayed like his husband or wife or whatever. And like literally on the 20th page, there was one really good article where a famous soccer player did something for charity, and the rest was just completely negative. And that was like, oh, wow.
But you're right. You see, the interesting thing there is the soccer player doing something for charity, which is great, right? But you don't need a soccer player to do something for charity for humanity to be wonderful. The fact that we can walk around and do things, and that we can make music and make pictures and build bridges and build ships, and all of these things are wonderful and magical, but we don't have the vocabulary to celebrate those. If you or I donate money to charity, that's fine. If a millionaire donates money to charity, he or she is a philanthropist. We don't have a word. There's no philanthropy that only begins above a certain price tag, and charity only hits the newspaper if a footballer does it. It's this kind of, I know why the newspapers do that. I don't have a problem with newspapers writing scary stories. The only problem I have, and this is the core to my thinking about communication, is it's been proven. There's an important study by the British research company Ipsos that when you ask people what they think about the world, they are generally wrong, and they're generally more pessimistic than the reality. And those two things go hand in hand. If you're given bad news all the time, then we have a kind of allergic reaction. We overestimate the amount of danger there. So we hear about a terrorist attack. There was a very good terrorist. No, there was a very good terrorist. That's a Freudian slip. There was a very good journalist and podcaster who shall remain nameless, who wrote a piece in a German newspaper, I think last December or something. And he said, Austria has been rocked by many crises in the last months, unemployment, this economy, and terrorism. And I wrote to him, I said, what terrorism? What was the terrorism in Austria? And he genuinely answered me, even terrorist attacks in other countries affect Austria. But that's not what he wrote. What he wrote was Austria has been rocked. I think he said rocked. I don't know what the German was, but he said rocked by these crises and he included terrorism in that. And what you're doing is that you're internalizing external conflicts. And I understand why he did that, because he wanted his piece in the newspaper to be exciting. It was a good piece, it was a quality piece, and it was an Austrian perspective on the world. But he felt he couldn't write this piece about Austria without banging the terrorism drum. And the thing there is that people reading that will be just subjectively more scared of terrorism. And the last terrorism thing that happened in Austria was some Austrians killing Austrians. So,
Yeah. So let's talk about maybe an antidote and what you do to combat this, and maybe about the charities you started. I think one is United Heartbeat and the other is Vienna Greeters. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, sure. I think one of the things that you talk about in your blog as well is time, and time is quite crucial to everything I've done. When I left my last company, which was a good job, very very interesting and creative company. One of the motivating factors for me leaving was I didn't want to spend 40 hours in a week working on one thing. I know I had lots of different tasks within that job, but out of sheer curiosity, I wanted to spend my time doing different things. And I genuinely wanted to spend some more time investigating social activities. I don't mean partying and playing football, but getting involved. And what I found there was that as soon as I stopped going to the office at 9 o'clock and leaving at 6 o'clock or whatever it was, I found that I started getting much more work done. I know it was a honeymoon period and I was quote unquote self-employed, and I was a hipster, middle-aged hipster, if there is such a thing, working in coffee shops with my laptop. Sure, it's a privileged existence, and I know that. I totally understand that. But I found that I was working on the thing. I was working on the subject and not spending an hour in the office. And suddenly I found that I was getting so much more done. And the other thing, this is probably just a personal thing, but I suffer from chronic curiosity, so I like to change subject every now and then. So I enjoy working for 2 hours on one subject and then doing something very contrasting and then coming back to the first thing. Both of the charities that I was involved with, or I am involved with, that I helped start, sort of came about. One was a discussion in a cafe with a friend where we just wrote down 6 pages of ideas and stuff that we thought we could do. And he just pointed at the page and said, "We'll do this." And I thought, oh, bloody hell. And it was Vienna Greeters. And 3.5 years later, we've organized 1,400 free walks for 4,500 people with about 100 volunteers in the city. We do it all online. It's all, whoops, hit my microphone. We do it all online. It's all organized with online tools. The interesting thing there was that I realized how much I could profit from working with other people, from asking people to help me. There's an old, I don't know who said it, but there's an old motivation thing. If you ask someone, I think it was Benjamin Franklin, he said that when you ask someone to do you a favor, their opinion of you goes up. Oh. Because you've trusted them with helping. You've given them this, what does it say in German? They say Vertrauensvorschuss. So this trust advance. So they give you this trust in advance. They say, "Can you help me?" And Benjamin Franklin wrote about borrowing a book from another senator or somebody or whatever it was. And after that, the opinion of this other man of Benjamin Franklin went up, and they broke the ice and things moved on there. So Vienna Greeters was a thing just waiting to happen. Vienna is a beautiful city. There are many, many people in Vienna who want to share their city with other people. And I'm good at communicating, setting up websites, running a project all online, and getting people together to do stuff. And then a friend turned up, and 3 years ago, when what the politicians like to call the refugee crisis, but what I like to call the refugees, when many refugees were coming to Austria, we did rack our brains. We felt very frustrated with the fact that we were being asked to take bottles of water to the railway station, and thinking, why don't they have water at the railway station? And there were lots of refugees coming through Austria. And we said to ourselves, well, we're frustrated. We'd like to do something. What are we good at? Well, we said we're good at organizing stuff. We're good at setting things up. We're good at running projects, and we're musicians. So we decided to help musicians who'd left their countries for whatever reason. And that was a very, very successful. We raised 22,000 euros and spent it all on musical instruments. The key there, and this is where I learned something, where I learned a lot, was we set up a charity with a very specific goal. We didn't want to teach people how to play the guitar. We didn't want to start running courses for this. We didn't organize concerts. We didn't teach German or anything like that. We said we'd buy instruments. We'd raise money and buy instruments for musicians who've left their countries. So as a musician, it's very easy to see when you're sitting in front of a musician. There are people who are musicians and there are people who would like to be musicians. And the people who we met and spoke to, you could tell after 30 seconds that they were a musician, and their instrument was back in Afghanistan or Iran or Syria or Africa somewhere. And that was a tremendously enriching experience. I met lots and lots. I still keep meeting lots and lots of people. We learned lots of very tragic stories, very emotional things. But we had a feeling that we were playing a tiny role in making the lives of these people a little bit better. And as one of the people said to us in the early days, who'd been in Austria for quite a few years, he said, "When do you stop being a refugee?" And that was quite central to our message, because if you play a musical instrument, you're a musician, or you sing, you're a musician. You don't have this stamp. You're not pigeonholed as a refugee, because the word refugee has been brutally misused by politicians in all countries to further their local agendas. The discussion that in Germany and in the UK and in the States that politicians have about refugees have very little to do with the actual situation for refugees on the ground. Go talk to someone at Doctors Without Borders or at the UN or Caritas here in Austria, and they'll tell you about, the real situation for refugees. The reality is that the people in Austria made phenomenal took phenomenal efforts to help refugees in the country. The discussion the politicians have very little to do with the reality. You must remember, whenever you hear the word, you have to have a kind of a warning or a flag or a button or an alarm or something. Whenever a politician uses the word refugee, they are electioneering, nothing else. If the people who really care about refugees are out there helping them, the people who talk about it on the radio, and the radio will always put you on, they will always put Horst Seehofer on the radio, and the Brexit people, and etc., because they're entertaining.
Yeah, lots of different things come to mind, but I think I would like to talk about like what we can do, like on a personal level, or if you're just like an entrepreneur getting started. I work with a lot of people who are in this social entrepreneurship, who call it social entrepreneurship, what we can do. And I think what you're doing is great, because you're taking these abstract concepts of refugees and taking it to a really personal level and getting back to the getting back to a personal level. And this is nothing we can get from the news or something, or from social media. It's always coming back and getting as personal as possible, and that's also what's creating happiness.
I fully agree, and to come back to the beginning of the discussion, it's all marketing, because when United Heartbeat and Eva, who's founded the charity, said we buy musical instruments for people who've left their homes, in three years since we've done this, almost 3 years now, we have never ever been criticized. We've never received any hate mail or any kind of racist comment or anything like that, because you can't, because because the goal, the vision, and the task we set ourselves is so specific. You know, the propaganda out there is that refugees get free cars and flats and houses and money and phones and all this kind of stuff. That's misinformation. The only way to combat misinformation is with information, is with facts. Hans Rosling, factfulness. The only way to, and by doing this very, very specifically, that's marketing. Anyone who goes to United Heartbeat website can see exactly what we do in 10 seconds. And I think we've been quite successful with Vienna Greeters, that we spent a long time working on the 5 points about Vienna Greeters. What you need to know. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's it. And if it's not for you, go away. And every now and then we get emails from people saying, yeah, I'd like to book you. How much does this cost? Blah, 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 blah. When it says at the top of the front page that it's free. And then they send us an email saying, what does it cost? Then, okay, but that's like 1 in 1,000. We get many more requests from people who do get it. And really, all of the things I'm doing here have this common denominator of communication and marketing. You're still, you know, people say in English, non-profit, everything has a profit. If it doesn't have a profit, why are you doing it? If you're doing it to get to heaven because you're a Christian and you believe if you do good stuff, that's a profit, right? If that's your belief. If you're doing it because you want to feel good, that's a profit. There's always a profit there. So when the American term non-profit is a tax, it's a tax thing. It's got to do with the financial reports. But this idea that you do something because it's good, I think that's colossal bullshit. I think the only reason to do something is because you get something out of it. Everything I've done, which you would call a charity, has been completely egotistical. I've done it for myself. Everything I ever did, I did for me.
Okay. Is there anything I haven't asked you about making things better, heroes, good causes, volunteering, marketing, or music that you'd like to share?
The news thing. I think my hobby at the moment is what Hans Rosling called fact. Well, the book is here. You can't see this on the page, but it's this book by Hans Rosling. Have you heard of it?
I've read about it on your blog.
You read about it? Yeah. The book shows people that we have a wrong perception of the world around us, and it explains how things have got better in the last 100 years and in the last 20 years and 10 years and last year. The point there is not that people are wrong. The point there is, how can we develop a way of being right? How can we develop a positive way of being right? I spoke to the people at Gapminder who published the book. You can't sit down at a dinner party or in a pub or in a club somewhere and say to someone, you're wrong. That's not a very good way to start a discussion. And I've done it many times. So I speak from experience. One of the things that I think is a big hobby of mine at the moment, and it ties into the work I do as well, is actually you are allowed to sit down and say, look at this, this is wonderful. And companies don't do that. Companies have people who've worked for them for 15, 20 years. They don't celebrate them, and they should. These are people who spend all their daily working hours in their company. People have someone said to me once, well, I'm not happy in my job, but at least I'm grateful to have a job. I thought, no. I have this very probably stupid cliche. I say, if you live in a rich country and you're healthy and you have an education and you have paid employment and you're not happy, it's your fault. Because there are so many people in the world who don't have one of those things. They don't have the health, they don't have the education, and they don't have the opportunity. That if you have all of those things and you're still not happy, do something, change something. Go and find out what it is that would make you happy. And we're, through advertising and through just the way we are, I mean, this all sounds very propagandistic, but TV, radio, newspapers, they tell us that the things that will make us happy are kind of consumerism. Now, I'm not against buying stuff. I'm a true red-blooded capitalist. I love stuff. capitalism has solved lots of problems, especially regarding poverty. But if people who work in a company say they're not happy, but they'll stay there anyway, then something has to change. So that's kind of something which you do with your blog, with your website, and with your product. And I think people need to learn more and more, because otherwise people get in this downward spiral of thinking that the world outside is bad and the world outside here is good. And then you get these, what do you call it? You get these solutions like, if only I had that house, I would be happy. If only I had more money, I would be happy. If only I had blah, 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 I would be happy. And that's never, ever the case. If you're not happy, you do need to change something, but it probably isn't buying something. Sure, I like buying stuff, but that's very short term. That makes you happy for a short period of time, because you've proved that you have the financial ability to buy something, even if you don't. So you come home with a bag or a box, or you open an Amazon box, and that's great. But that's very, very short-lived. So my final word is, if you're not happy, do something.
Yeah, and keep it simple. Even if it's just inviting over a friend for a real dinner, and like even if you just order a pizza and have it together, like it's still better than having a real conversation and then just messaging each other through like Skype or Facebook or something.
Yeah, because we don't really have a vocabulary for that. It's very easy to be branded as an esoteric or as a hippie or something. If you start talking about happiness, and thinking, bloody hell, if we can't talk about happiness, then what companies ask their staff if they're happy on a regular basis? Large companies. And okay, I'll give you one book tip to finish. And it's from Basecamp, the project management people. Have you seen it?
Yeah, I've read it like 3 weeks ago or something.
The Calm book?
No, the Rework.
Okay, there's a new book. It's called It Doesn't Have to Be Crazy at Work.
Okay.
And it's very, very good. They do speak as successful millionaires. It's very easy for successful millionaires to write about how well their company is doing, because that's survivor bias. They're the people who made it. People who didn't make it with their companies don't write books. So sure, you have that. However, they're still right.
Yeah. Is there one particular story or case study that you'd like to share that really sums up what we've been talking about in the interview?
I think to go back to the beginning is what you mentioned about marketing and content marketing and empathy. Empathy is my favorite word these days. And I think that's the line that goes through everything we've discussed, is empathy. If you can't, as a musician, think about what it must be like for a musician to leave Syria and not have their trumpet with them. They play crazy brass band music in Syria, did you know? They have it's like the Scouts. They have these huge youth brass bands, and it's wonderful. It's the most crazy thing I've ever seen. It's beautiful. If you can't imagine what it must be like for a 12-year-old child to not have their trumpet that they had last year, then you can't help them fix that situation, or you won't be able to do it as well. And if you can't put yourself in the position of someone who wants to buy your product, you won't be able to sell it to them. So I think, that's my new favorite word, empathy now. So,
okay, yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for the interview. And how can people find out more about you and what you do?
JonathanIrons.com. You'll link it somewhere.
Yeah, for sure, I will.
That's my website. My blog post on my website is very vague. I write blog posts about stuff that interest me. And I try to do it to make sure I write stuff down every now and then. It keeps me fit.
Okay, yeah, thank you for the interview.
Thanks, Martin.